species do you think exist in the world today, and how many had disappeared with time? The book Endangered Species tells us about the plight of endangered animals and how we must conserve them. Dinosaurs had lived on Earth from the Mesozoic era until a climactic event wiped out all of them 65 million years ago. One such event is called a mass extinction. There are 5 such mass extinctions that have happened in history. According to scientists, through the 5 mass extinctions, 90% of the species that once walked the earth are already wiped out. We humans are in the midst of the newest mass extinction, the 6th extinction. However, there is a catch. The rate of extinction nowadays compared to the rate of extinction back then is 100 times larger. This alarming rate of extinction is greatly affecting the Earth's ecosystems and biosphere. But what exactly causes extinction and how can we suppress it? Let's take a dive into the book to see what it tells us. So, I'm going to talk about first the origins of life, and then how extinction starts, third why extinction matters, and lastly how we can stop the extinctions from happening. So, here is a quote from Charles Darwin. Preservation of favorable variations and the rejection of injurious variations I call natural selection, or the survival of the fittest. Charles Darwin. So, firstly, the origins of species. A species can only go extinct if it exists in the first place. All life starts with DNA, also known as deoxyribonucleic acid, which tells the cell what to do in order to create an organism. DNA is a complex molecule composed of 4 different nucleotides: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. They form a code that orders the cell to form an organism. The cells replicate themselves under the order of DNA, but it is not always successful in replicating itself. In contrast, it typically makes a lot of mistakes called mutations. Mutations can either be harmless or harmful. Sometimes mutations even help a species develop a new trait. If that trait is useful, it will survive over time. But if the trait is not useful, it will die over time. Those traits play a large role in the well-being and survival of the species. A prominent example of this is the giraffe. It most likely started out as a species without its distinct long neck, but the long neck grew over time in order to reach higher leaves that grow on taller trees. About how species are made, now let's talk about ways they can get extinct. A species can get extinct by many ways, but there are 3 main ways to kill off a species. One is to change their environment so drastically in a quick amount of time, so that they don't have time to adapt to their new environment and eventually die. The mutations and traits that they have in order to adapt in the old environment don't work in the new environment anymore, and therefore they die off. Some organisms may have developed traits to adapt to the new environment already, but the traits couldn't be passed fast enough to the new generation. The second way is to let the species get hunted or impacted by other species so badly it can't reproduce fast enough. One example of this is the extinction of the dodo. The dodo was a large flightless bird which was extremely easy to hunt. Olden days sailors hunted them as it was easy food, and they did not have enough time to introduce new traits that helped it escape from the sailors. The last main way is a climactic event that changes the environment so drastically that it kills off a lot of species at once. These climactic events can be anything ranging from diseases to asteroid impacts or even climate change. This is what most likely happened with the dinosaurs' sudden disappearance from Earth. If species come and go that easily, then why does extinction even matter? Extinction matters because it will cause a disturbance in the natural ecosystem. Take, for example, a food chain consisting of grasshoppers, bluebirds, snakes, and owls. For the sake of our experiment, we will remove the bluebirds in that area. The snakes now have two choices. First, to move to another area with bluebirds, or two, resort to eating other birds. A portion of the snakes will choose to move away, making the snake population decrease. When the snake population decreases, the owls in the area have less snakes to eat, and therefore the owl population also decreases. However, the population of the grasshoppers will increase because there are less birds there to eat them. That is what happens when a species gets extinct. This other species gets their diet altered negatively and has to change their environment. Another result of a species disappearing is that we cannot use their positive effects anymore. If a beneficial plant goes extinct, we cannot use its beneficial effects because, well, it's gone. It cannot be used anymore. But if we look at the issues in the bigger viewpoint, we can say that extinction of many species is actually threatening humanity's chances of survival as a species, because infectious diseases that lost their original hosts will turn to other hosts, including humans. When biodiversity decreases, the chances of humans surviving as a species go down. If that is so, how do we stop the extinctions? Sadly, there is a catch, the tragedy of the commons. If we continue our current lifestyle, then we are still affecting the life of other species negatively. To stop extinctions, we will have to give up a lot of our benefits. We strive for a world with no disturbed ecosystems, yet we still trade wild species to other parts of the world with no remorse. There is a pact named CITES that prevents this from happening, and so far it is helping in preventing this trade. Other ways to prevent extinction of species from happening include donating to charities, signing petitions, etc. You can view endangered species in the Red List website, which lists endangered species based on a scale from least concern to extinct. Here are some facts about extinction. In the Red List, there are currently 80 species listed as extinct in the wild, including the St. Helena redwood and the Franklin tree. In the last 10 years, the population of African rhinos have gone down due to excessive poaching. 7,100 African rhino organisms have been poached in those years. Thankfully, due to effective conservation, about 5,000 organisms reside in Africa today. Currently, there are about 38,500 species threatened with extinction and 41% of all amphibians threatened, 26% of all mammals threatened, 34% of all conifers threatened, and 14% of all birds threatened, which is approximately 1/6 of all bird species. There are currently 8,404 species listed as critically endangered, and 28% of all assessed species in the Red List are threatened with extinction. This sums up the book Endangered Species and the book's content. The book provides an overall nice overview to how endangered species get endangered and is a very informative book. The author had explained the plight of endangered species through clear, consistent writing and lots of pictures. Throughout the book, the author has described the process of how a species becomes extinct and has analyzed different aspects of extinction. This book is suitable for teenage readers and anybody who has an interest in extinction and endangered species. This book can be purchased or borrowed from online libraries, and I hope that you will enjoy the book. Thank you for watching.